What's up, peoples? Today we will be looking at Ereshkigal, who she was and what people believed about her. In Mesopotamian religion, Ereshkigal was the queen of the underworld, also known as the Lady of the Great Place. She was always on the lookout for lawbreakers and on guard over the fountain of life, just in case any of her subjects drank from it and returned to life, escaping her rule. Her power also extended to earth, where she freed those possessed of evil spirits through magical ceremonies. In the 3rd millennium BCE, she was the wife of the god Ninazu, who was sometimes also described as her son. But later, her consort was the god Nergal. Ereshkigal's sister was Inanna Ishtar. Check out my video on who exactly she was. While her child and servant was Namtar, the demon of death. Ereshkigal's cult extended from Mesopotamia, where her chief temple was located at Cuthah, all the way to Asia Minor, Egypt and southern Arabia. Now, let's dig into the details. Ereshkigal was the Mesopotamian queen of the dead who ruled the underworld. She was also known as Irkalla and Allatu, and her name translates to Queen of the Great Below or Lady of the Great Place. She was basically responsible for keeping the dead in her kingdom and preventing the living from entering and learning the truth about the afterlife. Mesopotamians believed that the underworld lay beneath the mountain of sunset to the west and was known as Kurnugia, the land of no return, or as Irkalla, after its queen, much like Hades is both the god of the underworld and the name for the underworld in Greek mythology. Kurnugia was a realm of gloom under the earth, where the souls of the dead drank from muddy puddles and ate dust. Ereshkigal ruled over these souls from her palace Ganzir, located at the entrance of the underworld, and guarded by 7 gates, which were kept by her servant Neti. She ruled alone until the god of war, Nergal, became her consort and co-ruler for 6 months of the year. Ereshkigal is the older sister of the goddess Inanna Ishtar, and is best known for the part she plays in the famous Sumerian poem Ishtar's Descent into the Underworld. Her first husband, and father of the god Ninazu, was the great bull of heaven, Gugalana, who was killed by the hero Enkidu in the Epic of Gilgamesh. She also bore a son Namtar by the god Enlil, and by another consort she had her daughter Nergal, also known as Manungal, an underworld deity who punished the wicked and who was associated with healing and retribution. Her final consort was the war god Nergal, who was also the only one who stayed with her in the land of the dead. Although goddesses lost their status in later Mesopotamian history, early evidence clearly shows the most powerful gods were once female. Ereshkigal is unique in being the only female deity to hold the position of ruler of the underworld even after gods supplanted goddesses, and Nergal was given to her as a consort. She remained the most feared deity in Mesopotamian pantheon because she represented a person's final destination from which there was no return. Ereshkigal is always represented in prayers and rituals as a formidable goddess of great power, but often in stories as one who forgives an injustice or a wrong in the interest of the greater good. As ruler of the underworld, she was understood to reward the good and punish the evil, but more importantly, keep the dead in her realm, where they belonged. The 7 gates of the underworld were constructed both to keep the living out and to keep the dead in. A cult of the dead grew up around Ereshkigal to honor those who had passed into her realm and continue to remember and care for them. Since the dead had nothing but muddy water to drink and dust to eat, food was placed and fresh water poured on tombs, which was thought to trickle down to the mouths of the dead. Ereshkigal, as with all the gods of Mesopotamia, maintained order and stood against the forces of chaos. Those souls who had left the world of the living were not supposed to return, and she made certain they stayed where they belonged. If a ghost should come back to haunt the living, one could be sure it was for good reason and with Ereshkigal's permission. As in other cultures, the main reasons for a haunting were improper burial of the dead or impious acts which had gone unpunished. As queen and guardian of the dead, Ereshkigal stood as a potent reminder to the living to observe the proper rites and rituals in their lives, and to act in the best interest of the immediate and larger communities. Although Ereshkigal was feared, she was also greatly respected. The descent of Inanna Ishtar shows her as selfish and self-serving, and ends with praise for Ereshkigal, not Inanna. The work begins by stating how Inanna chooses to travel to the underworld to attend Gugulana's funeral, a death that she had brought about, and details how she is treated when she arrives. Ereshkigal is not happy to hear that her sister is at the gates, and instructs Neti to make her remove various articles of clothing and ornaments at each of the 7 gates before admitting her to the throne room. By the time Inanna stands before Ereshkigal, she is naked, and after the Anunnaki of the dead pass judgments against her, Ereshkigal kills her sister and hangs her corpse on the wall. It is only through Inanna's cleverness and previously instructing her servant Ninchubur what to do, and Ninchubur's ability to persuade the gods in favor of her mistress, that Inanna is resurrected. Even so, Inanna's consort Dumuzi and his sister, who were agricultural dying and reviving gods, then need to take her place in the underworld, because it is the land of no return, and no one can come back without finding a replacement. The main character of the piece is thus not Inanna, but Ereshkigal. The queen acts on the judgment of her advisors, the Anunnaki, who recognize that Inanna Ishtar is guilty of causing Gugulana's death. The text reads, "The Anunnaki, the judges of the underworld, surrounded her. They passed judgment against her. Then Ereshkigal fastened on Inanna the eye of death. She spoke against her the word of wrath. She uttered against her the cry of guilt. She struck her. Inanna was turned into a corpse, a piece of rotting meat, and was hung from a hook on the wall." Inanna is judged and executed for her crime, but she had foreseen this possibility and left instructions with her servant Ninchubur. After 3 days and 3 nights waiting for Inanna, Ninchubur follows the commands of the goddess, goes to Inanna's father god Enki for help, and receives 2 Gala, a type of androgynous demon, to help her in returning Inanna to the earth. The Gala enter the underworld like flies, and following Enki's specific instructions, attach themselves closely to Ereshkigal, causing her great distress. The poem continues to describe the queen experiencing the pains of labor. The Gala sympathize with the queen's pains, and she, in gratitude, offers them whatever gift they ask for. As ordered by Enki, the Gala respond, "We wish only the corpse that hangs from the hook on the wall," and Ereshkigal gives it to them. The Gala then revive Inanna with the food and water of life, and she rises from the dead. It is at this point, after Inanna leaves and is given back all that Neti took from her at the 7 gates, that someone else must be found to take Inanna's place. Her husband Dumuzi is chosen by Inanna, and his sister Gesht Inanna volunteers to go with him. Dumuzi will remain in the underworld for 6 months, and Gesht Inanna for the other 6, while Inanna, who caused all the problems in the first place, goes on to do as she pleases. The descent of Inanna would have resonated with an ancient audience in the same way it does today, if one understands who the central character actually is. The poem ends with the lines, "Holy Ereshkigal, great is your renown. Holy Ereshkigal, I sing you praises." Ereshkigal is chosen as the main character of the work because of her position as the formidable queen of the dead, and the message of the poem relates to injustice. If a goddess as powerful as Ereshkigal can be denied justice and endure the sting, then so can anyone reading or hearing the poem. Ereshkigal reigns over the kingdom alone until Nergal, the god of war, becomes her consort. In one version of the story, Nergal is seduced by the queen when he visits the underworld, but leaves her after 7 days of lovemaking, and then returns to stay with her for 6 months of the year. Versions of the story have been found in Egypt dating to the 15th century BCE, and at Sultan Tepe, site of an ancient Assyrian city, dated to the 7th century BCE. But probably the best known version, dating from the Neo-Babylonian period, has Enki manipulating the events which sent Nergal to the underworld as consort of the Queen of the Dead. One day, the gods prepared a great banquet to which everyone was invited, but Ereshkigal could not attend, because she could not leave the underworld, and the gods could not descend to hold their banquet there, because they would afterwards be unable to leave. The god Enki sent a message to Ereshkigal to send a servant who could bring her back her share of the feast, and she sent her son Namtar. When Namtar arrived at the god's banquet hall, they all stood and bowed out of respect for his mother, except for Nergal. Namtar was insulted and wanted the wrong redressed, but Enki told him to simply return to the underworld and tell his mother what had happened. When Ereshkigal hears the disrespect of Nergal, she tells Namtar to send a message back to Enki, demanding that Nergal be sent so she can kill him. The gods confer on this request and recognize its legitimacy, and so Nergal is told to journey to the underworld. Enki knew this would happen, and provides Nergal with 14 demon escorts to assist him at each of the 7 gates of the underworld. When Nergal arrives, his presence is announced by Neti, and Namtar tells his mother that the god who would not rise has come. Ereshkigal gives orders that he is to be admitted through each of the 7 gates, which should be barred behind him, and she will kill him when he reaches the throne room. After passing through each gate, however, Nergal posts 2 of his demon escorts to keep it open, and marches to the throne room, where he overpowers Namtar and drags Ereshkigal to the floor. He raises his axe to cut off her head, but she pleads with him to spare her, promising to be his wife if he agrees, and share her power with him. Nergal consents and seems to feel sorry for what he has done. The poem ends with the 2 kissing and the promise that they will remain together. Since Nergal was often causing problems on earth by losing his temper and causing war and strife, it has been suggested that Enki arranged the entire scenario to get him out of the way. War was recognized as a part of the human experience, however, and so Nergal could not remain in the underworld permanently, but had to return to the surface for 6 months of the year. Since he had posted his demon escorts at the gates, had arrived of his own free will, and had been invited to stay as consort by the queen, Nergal was able to leave without having to find a replacement. In the Sultan Tepe version, however, the god Anu is the one manipulating events, and Nergal does not overpower Ereshkigal when he is sent to the underworld. Instead, he kneels and kisses the ground before her. Ereshkigal then manages to seduce Nergal by exposing her body to him. They embrace and passionately enter the bedchamber. They lie together for 7 days, after which Nergal asks Ereshkigal to let him go, promising that he will return. When Nergal is restored to life, Ereshkigal weeps, saying that he has deserted her, and threatening that she will let the dead rise up to eat the living if Anu, Enlil, and Ea do not return Nergal to her. Namtar then goes and fetches Nergal once more, who returns to the underworld and grabs Ereshkigal out of love. They embrace and again lie together for 7 days, and eventually Anu decrees that Nergal and Ereshkigal will rule together. If you have enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much.